Professor Abdelkarim Qasim Sayaghi, the Professor of Business Administration at Sana University, Supervisor of the study. Professor Ali Al-Ashwal, Associate Professor of Business Administration at the University of Science and Technology. And of course, it is my honor to sit in front of you to explain my thesis titled The Impact of Decision Making on Crisis Management Through Artificial Intelligence, a proposed model for improving crisis management in private banks in Yemen. The study consists of 5 chapters as follows. Chapter 1, Introduction. Chapter 4, Chapter 2, Literature Review. Chapter 3, Methodology. Chapter 4, Finding. And Chapter 5, Discussion. Chapter 1, Introduction. This chapter provides an overview of the research. It includes a background of presentation on CMDM and AI, followed by the proposed methodology for enhancing CM in Yemeni private banks. The section outlined the research problems, goals, hypotheses, and significance of the study. This chapter also proceeds with data analysis, operational definitions, and limitations. Background of the study tried to give information from general to specific about the 3 variables, which are crisis management, decision making, and artificial intelligence. Problem statements. The study has been identified according to economic study and forecasts which achieved by the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation and other organizations, the reports of Central Bank of Yemen, the reports of private banks in Yemen, and the previous studies. In light of the discussion outlined in the problem statements and previous studies, this study aimed to address the following research questions. Question 1, is there a statistically significant impact of decision-making, quality, effectiveness, acceptance on crisis management in private banks in Yemen? Question number 2, is there a statistically significant impact of decision-making, quality, effectiveness, acceptance on artificial intelligence in private banks in Yemen? Question 3, is there a statistically significant impact of artificial intelligence user systems and devices on crisis management in private banks in Yemen? Question number 4, is there a statistically significant effect of artificial intelligence user systems devices as a mediating variable in the relationship of decision making with crisis management in private banks in Yemen? Study important. Theoretically important. Number 1, this study proposes a crisis management model consisting of 5 phases for private banks in Yemen. Number 2, this study examining the significant impact of decision-making in crisis management. Number 3, this study investigates how private banks in Yemen handle administrative choices. Number 4, this study tries to discover the most significant dimensions of AI, user systems, devices, and despite the different levels of artificial intelligence, only these 3 dimensions are important requirements for artificial intelligence. Practically importance, this study assessed private banks in Yemen in promptly managing crisis. Decision making will utilize the information of this study to implement appropriate communication structures and conduct routine drills. The personnel team in charge of crisis management will be well informed and prepared to handle crisis on all fronts. The study shows the most important dimensions of artificial intelligence and the most influential in crisis management. Study objectives. The aim of this study is to test the proposed model for enhancing crisis management in private banks in Yemen. The specific objectives are as follows. Number one, verify the impact of decision-making on crisis management in private banks in Yemen. Verify the impact of decision-making on artificial intelligence in private banks in Yemen. Number three, verify the impact of artificial intelligence on crisis management in private banks in Yemen. Number four, verify the impact of artificial intelligence as a mediating variable in the relationship of decision making with crisis management. Based on previous studies, this research seeks to introduce a novel model that enhances CM. The study model was drawn using a MOS program. The fundamental theoretical underpinning of this research are crisis management theory, contingency theory, decision theory, fuzzy logic, game theory, theory of mind, and the last, systems theory. The study hypotheses are number one, there is a statistically significant impact of decision-making, quality, effectiveness, acceptance on crisis, on artificial intelligence in private banks in Yemen. Number one, there is a statistically significant impact of decision-making on crisis management in private banks in Yemen. Number two, there is a statistically significant impact of decision-making on artificial intelligence in private banks in Yemen. Number three, there is a statistically significant impact of artificial intelligence on crisis management in private banks in Yemen. Number four, there is a statistically significant effect of artificial intelligence users, systems, and devices as a mediating variables in the relationship of decision-making with crisis management in private banks in Yemen. Number five, there are statistically significant differences in the response answer about the impact of decision-making on crisis management through artificial intelligence in private banks in Yemen due to demographic variables such as gender, age, educational qualification, years of service, job title, and banks. The previous studies, the study provides an overview of the previous research studies. The first part focuses on previous studies related to decision making. The second part discusses research on CM, and the last or the final part of this section reviews the previous studies on AI. The total number of previous studies was 50 as follows: 17 studies about decision making, 20 about crisis management, 13 about artificial intelligence, 7 previous studies between decision making and AI, 5 previous studies between DM and AI, 4 previous studies between AI and crisis management, and 1 previous studies between DM, AI, and crisis management. Chapter 2, literature review. This chapter illustrates the background of the crisis management in Yemen and present a review of the literature review that explains in details the concepts of CM and models. The chapter also highlights the decision making given the various definitions, explaining the concept and talking about the models of decision making. Finally, this chapter illustrates